What if you went from broke to rich in medieval times? Here's what'll happen. You start with nothing. No land, no money, no name anyone outside your village would recognize. By the time this story's over, none of that's true anymore. But getting there isn't going to happen because you worked harder or got lucky. It happens because of a plague, a forgotten law, and a financial trick most history videos skip entirely. None of it goes the way you'd expect. Let's see how it actually plays out. You're a serf. That single word explains your entire life before you've lived any of it. The land under your feet isn't yours. It belongs to a lord who's never once learned your name, and probably never will. Every harvest season, the best of what you grow gets taken first, hauled off to his stores, and whatever's left over is what your family eats, assuming there's enough left to matter. You can't just leave. Legally, you're bound to this exact patch of dirt for life. The same as your parents were before you, the same as your children will be after you, unless something changes that. There's no version of this where working harder fixes it. You could plow from sunrise to collapse every single day, and it wouldn't move you an inch closer to owning anything. This isn't the system failing. This is the system working exactly as designed. It's worked this way for centuries, and everyone around you has simply accepted it as how the world is. If you want a different life, the rules themselves have to break first. And right now, sitting in this field with dirt under your nails, you have absolutely no reason to believe they ever will. So you do the one thing serfs are explicitly not supposed to do. You run. There's a rule almost nobody remembers today, but everyone in your exact position knew it by heart. Survive inside a chartered town for a year and a day without your lord catching up to drag you back, and the law itself declares you a free person. They actually had a saying for it. City air makes you free, as if the air inside those walls physically changes what you legally are. It's not a guarantee, not even close. Towns aren't obligated to protect you. Lords absolutely do come looking, sometimes for months. And if you're caught before that year is up, what happens next is worse than if you'd never tried to leave at all. But you go anyway, because staying guarantees nothing ever changes, and leaving at least gives you a real shot at something different. You find work wherever the city will take you, hauling, cleaning, anything nobody else wants to do. You're not free yet, not legally, not really. You're just counting days on your fingers, trying to stay invisible long enough for the math to finally work in your favor. Then 1347 happens. The Black Death arrives on trade ships nobody thought to stop, and within just a few years, somewhere around a third of all of Europe is dead. By any reasonable measure, this is the single worst thing that could happen to you, and it is exactly that. People you know personally don't survive it. Whole villages empty out. But buried inside that disaster is something almost nobody sees coming, including you. So much of the workforce is simply gone that labor itself becomes scarce, genuinely scarce, for the first time in living memory. And for the first time in your entire life, the people who need workers need you more than you need them. Lords who once had their absolute pick of desperate, replaceable peasants are suddenly short-handed, staring at empty fields with no one left to work them. They can't just demand obedience anymore. There's no one standing behind you in line, ready to take your spot the moment you complain. The math that kept you powerless your whole life, the math that made you replaceable and disposable, just flipped overnight. It's not that the world got kinder. Nobody got kinder. It's that the one thing you actually had to offer, your labor, just became valuable, purely because there's catastrophically less of it left to go around. So you do something that would have gotten you punished 5 years earlier. You ask for real wages. And you're not remotely the only one. Peasants across the entire region start refusing to work under the old terms, walking straight off land they would have died defending the right to farm just a few years before. Because for once in their lives, they actually can. And it works. Wages climb fast, faster than anyone still in charge wants them to. Lords panic and rush through new laws trying to legally cap pay back down to where it used to sit. People openly ignore them. It gets disruptive enough that decades later, it helps spark genuine uprisings. Peasants across whole regions revolting outright against being shoved back into the system they just barely escaped. You're not leading any revolt yourself. You're just one person who finally, for the first time, has actual leverage. And you are not handing it back without a fight. With real wages finally landing in your hands, you do something you've genuinely never been able to do before in your entire life. You save. Not much, not at first. A coin here, a coin there, hidden somewhere your lord's old steward will never think to look. But eventually, it adds up to something. A little real capital sitting in your hands for the very first time. And that's when someone in the city tells you about a commenda. It's a real contract structure merchants have been quietly using for decades. One person puts up the money, another person actually makes the dangerous trade voyage, and whatever profit comes back gets split between them. The entire genius of it is that you don't need much capital to get in, and you absolutely do not have to personally sail anywhere or risk your own neck on a ship that might never come back at all. So you pool what little you've managed to save with a handful of others in your exact position, buy into a single voyage, and wait, not knowing if it'll come back at all. It does. It comes back successful. Your individual share isn't huge. Nobody's getting rich off one voyage alone. But it's real money, made from money, for the first time in your entire life. And that single shift, more than any other moment in this whole story, is the actual difference between barely surviving and finally building something that's yours. Here's the actual lesson, the part most retellings of this story leave out entirely. It was never about avoiding the crisis. The plague didn't make you rich. It broke the existing system just enough that the people positioned to move the moment it cracked came out ahead of where they started, while everyone who just sat around waiting for things to quietly go back to normal got left exactly, precisely, where they already were. That's not actually a medieval story. That's every market crash since, every recession, every major disruption that's ever hit any economy. Collapse redistributes power. It doesn't destroy it, it just moves it. And the redistribution always favors whoever happens to be paying attention when it actually happens. You started broke because the system was built, on purpose, to keep you exactly there. You ended up rich because, for one narrow window in history, that system cracked, and you were already standing there, ready to walk straight through it. This is Explore Finance. See you in the next one.